Hi, everyone. My name is Claire, and I'll be doing our introduction and our conclusion for our presentation on the dangers of technology. So first, it's important to establish what actually is technology. So the Webster Dictionary defines technology as the practical application of knowledge, especially in a particular area, or a capability given by the practical application of knowledge. And in our presentation, this can take many forms. Primarily, we'll be looking at it through the lens of social media, AI or robots, clones or deepfakes, and phones/computers. So now I'll walk you through our outline for our presentation. So our book that we will be looking at is The Giver by Lois Lowry, which Pei will present on. And the themes we'll be looking at are memory, deprivation of freedom of choice, and surveillance, which are all fears or dangers surrounding technology. Then the art we'll be looking at is Simon Stålenhag's paintings, which Anna will present on. And the themes in his paintings that we'll be examining are the addicting nature of technology and the individualistic nature of technology. Then our TV show that we'll look at is The Island, which Minhui will present on. And the themes in The Island that we'll examine are gene cloning technology and human dignity and surveillance/control. And then we'll also be looking at this blur between fantasy and reality as it becomes increasingly difficult to tell what is real and what is fake. Next, the political debate we'll be looking at are deepfakes, which Jan will present on. And in deepfakes, we'll again examine this concept of reality versus fantasy. And then finally, our wildcard presentation will be the documentary/drama, The Social Dilemma, which Sophie will present on. And our themes that we'll be looking at are addiction, isolation/depression, the obsession with being liked, and fake news/polarization, which again kind of relates back to the blur between fantasy/reality. So some of our overarching themes that you'll see through our presentation are addiction and the blur between fantasy/reality. So in addiction, it's primarily seen in social media throughout our presentation because that's the most relevant example that we have today. Social media is extremely addicting because it makes you feel good and you get an artificial sense of relationship, human connection, and validation. But we'll go into more depth on this idea later. And then our second main theme is the blur between fantasy/reality. So deepfakes can make it difficult to determine what is true and what is fake. Since it's on the internet, it's impossible for a human just to easily distinguish a deepfake from a real person. It's very easy to be fooled. And then similarly in social media, the presence of fake news is another example. Anyone can say whatever they want online, so it's difficult to know what is real. We're having to start thinking very critically about everything that we see and maybe doing some background research to see if it's actually real or not. And then another example throughout our presentation of the blur between fantasy and reality are the clones on the island. So now we will be going into the presentation with The Giver. So I'll see you again at the end.
Hello everyone, my name is Beverly, and today I'm going to talk about The Giver. So The Giver is a 1993 novel written by Lois Lowry, and it talks about a futuristic society where all emotions, colors, and even memories are eliminated from almost every member of the society. Society in The Giver values sameness and equality, and that is why freedom of choice is also taken from citizens there. For instance, every child who reaches 12 years old, the 12s, is assigned an assignment by the elders during the ceremony of the 12. At the beginning of the novel, the author portrays the ceremony of the 12, in which our main protagonist, Jonas, is given the position to be the new receiver of memory. As the new receiver of memory, Jonas is the only one that has a collective memory of the community, and he receives all the memories of the past from the current receiver called the Giver. And now I'm going to share with you some of the critical elements in this technotopia work. To start with, memory is a critical concept that is repeatedly highlighted in The Giver. In the book, one individual, Jonas, or his predecessor, the giver, is selected to be responsible for all the other memories so that others can live without a burden. Repression of memory serves as a way to numb the citizens and avoid examination from the people, since there is no the past to compare with the present. If memories were not controlled by the social system, it may be a considerable individual and emancipating power. For example, we see the main character Jonas turns from obedient to rebellious within the process of his training sessions with the giver. The climax in The Giver occurred when Jonas witnessed his father, a nurturer who looks after newborn babies until they are given to families, euthanized one of the infants, whereas Jonas was struck by realizing the meaning of release, which is a euphemism for death in their society. His father did not realize that he is actually killing the baby. So this is a turning point for Jonas, as it is one of the reasons why he decided to leave the community. By leaving, Jonas hopes to return memories and emotions to the people there. Interestingly, memory is utilized by the author as a way to maintain peace, stability, and sameness. But at the same time, it is also memory that uncovers how the seemingly utopian society is actually built on unseen violence, control, and surveillance. In The Giver, there is a well-constructed system that controls behaviors of the residents. To be blunt, freedom of choice is deprived as citizens have no control over their career, their spouse, and their lives. So children who are given a job at the ceremony of 12 move into adulthood and then immediately leave their family. And parents without children move into the house of childless adults and then eventually the house of old. This is a way to form sameness because everyone has exactly the same pattern in life. They also have no access to books or any forms of media and entertainment. That is why Jonas is so surprised when he sees all the books the giver has access to, because citizens are only allowed to read dictionaries or book of rules. Additionally, the community's government of elders assigns citizens similar houses and bicycles and standardizes clothing to avoid jealousy. All these means to control citizens eliminated differences and so possibilities of rebellion. Finally, surveillance in The Giver is conducted through sharing of dreams and telling of feelings between family members. The family time here is in fact more similar to indoctrination and surveillance. Parents are responsible to instill community values during this time. Additionally, the family time is for both the parents and the kids to spy on each other. They need to report if there are any abnormalities. For instance, Jonah starts to take pills to suppress his steering, which are sexual feelings, after his mother reported his dreams. So all in all, although individual family units, through individual family units, the committee of elders is able to control the community. So from The Giver, we see demolition of memory, deprivation of free choice, and surveillance through family units. All was meant for a stabilized and equal society. But at the same time, we also get dystopian issues such as equality, or euthanasia that the author wants us to reflect upon as the story unfolds. So this is the end of my part.
Hi, everyone. After having talked about tech dystopian in literature, I will now be talking about a tech dystopia within an artwork. I have picked two artworks from the collection The Electric State from Simon Stålenhag. Simon Stålenhag is a Swedish artist who is specialized in retrofuturistic digital images. One of his most famous collection is Tales from the Loop, which you might know because it has recently been turned into an Amazon Prime series. However, the images I picked are from one of his collections called The Electric State. I picked this collection because, contrary to Tales from the Loop, which can be seen as a quite positive outlook on technology, the Electric States goes more into the dangers of technology. It is a collection composed of artworks that consist of rural landscapes that have been transformed by experimental technologies and now consist of technological ruins along with disregarded technological trash. This world is a world in which people have become addicted to a virtual reality system, which has caused the nature of the world to decline. I have picked two specific artworks to go into. So the themes that I want to talk about are displayed on the screen, and the first one that I will go into is the addicting nature of technology. This is the first image that I have picked. So in the addicting nature of technology is a theme which is quite common to a tech dystopia. It is also visible in the social dilemma, which we will talk about at the end of our presentation. In this picture, I think you can very clearly see the addicting nature of technology because everyone is laying down in a car street. However, no one seems to be scared of any cars approaching. This sort of gives the idea that everyone is so completely into this technology that no one is, one, using cars anymore, and second, you can just lay anywhere without actually being scared of other people engaging in the environment. Moreover, you can see their cramped hands, which indicate the long duration of the action that they are doing in their virtual reality world. This is the second image that I have picked. I think it shows the addicting nature of technology because you can see someone in the middle of the night charging their virtual headset, and they are completely unaware of their environment. So instead of charging your body in the middle of the night by sleeping, you're now charging your virtual headset, meaning that that is sort of this new vision of what your world looks like. Stålenhag has said that this addicting nature of technology is connected to the view of a consumer society, meaning that a high-tech consumer society is addicted to a virtual reality system, leading to people being very disconnected from one another, which leads to my second theme, the individualistic nature of a tech dystopia. This means that technology can cause people to feel disconnected from one another and feel that like they are living in a world by themselves. In the first picture, this is can be seen because everyone is laying on the street together. However, no one is talking to one another or interacting with each other. Everyone is sort of fully into their own world. Moreover, in the second picture, this person is charging their virtual headset in the middle of the night, but they don't really seem to be afraid of being alone by themselves at night because they're so into this individualistic reality system which has taken up their whole life. That leads me to the last theme, which is the question of what is real in a virtual reality system, or like a tech dystopia. The third theme is very visible in other works from the group as well, such as the movie The Island and the discussion of deepfakes, as they also question what is real and what is fake in a world in which technology is so present in daily life. Especially in the works of Stålenhag, virtual reality really blurs the lines between what is real and what is seen as fake, as you create this whole new reality in which you live in. The last thing I want to touch upon is why I chose these two artworks. I think what is very interesting about these two artworks is the fact that they show that a technological dystopia might not be as far away as we always think it is. The similarity of the portrayed surroundings gives the images an eerie feeling as they feel familiar and close by. In comparison to the movie, which will be discussed after me, which has sort of displays a tech dystopia which feels very non-familiar and far away, I thought it was very interesting to show a dystopia in which you sort of get this feeling that a tech dystopia might not be as far away and that it's very possible to exist in our time.
Hello, I'm Minhui, and I will talk about a film, The Island. It is a 2005 American dystopian science fiction film directed by Michael Bay. The setting of this movie is 2019. The film is about Lincoln Sixeco, who struggles to fit into the highly structured world where he lives, isolated in a compound, and the series of events that unfold when he questions how truthful the world is. After Lincoln learns the compound inhabitants are clones used for organ harvesting as well as surrogates for wealthy people in the real world outside. He attempts to escape with Jordan to Delta and expose the illegal cloning movement. The island has been described as a pastiche of Escape from Dystopia science fiction films of the 1960s and 1970s, such as Fahrenheit 451, Parts, The Clonus Horror, and Logan's Run. This film deals with some dystopian aspects of future society, which is highly technologically advanced. The advancement of technology is an example of a dystopian theme, and I will talk about 3 techno-dystopian characteristics of this movie. First, gene cloning technology and human dignity. The island throws various topics about clone humans. In this film, wealthy people make clones as a means to prolong their lives, but we can pose some questions. Are the clones produced for organ transplants only products that can be consumed for the desire to prolong life? Or although the birth process is artificial, are they also another personality? Currently, humans are interested in human embryonic stem cell study or research on cloning humans. This is because it enables the treatment of incurable disease and can save many lives through organ transplants. However, despite these positive motives, we should think about the negative aspects of this. If I and the clone exist at the same time, there will be a big problem with self-identity, human dignity, and the boundary between me and others. Like this, if technology is used only as tools without ethics or philosophy, mankind will suffer great confusion. There are some areas that should not be invaded in the name of human development. Second, surveillance and control. In this film, technology helps the supervisors control the clones. For example, this technology allows the supervisors to decide and keep watch what the clones should have for breakfast, to know the clone's exact location and who is around them, to make it easier to control the behavior of clones with cameras everywhere. Actually, Lincoln and Jordan had escaped the supervision several times, but the cameras and the helicopters made it easier for the supervisors to know their location. Also, when the supervisors were doing brain tests on Lincoln, they were noting down the dreams he was having, so they used technology to put pressure so he would tell them exactly everything he knows. These examples of advanced technology show how much the controllers are able to know, so they can further notice everything a clone is starting to know. With advanced technology, the individuals in the society are limited in the freedom they have. They have to be very cautious of everything they do. Blurring between reality and what is fake. It's a question of what the real world is. Wealthy people regard clones as a means, but the movie also portrays them as human beings with dignity and equal to us. Clones have some body organs and emotions as humans. There is also love between Lincoln and Jordan, showing that clones have same worth as humans. They argue that as clones, the clone is also human and has the right and will to pioneer his life, while wealthy people think that the clone made for their eternal life has no dignity and rights. We will not be able to define whether the real world is different from the world where the clones live, whether the society where we live is different from the society where clones who have personalities, thoughts, and emotions live. In this situation, can we divide reality and what is fake? Human cloning has become a technology somewhat visible today, but through this film, it is necessary to think about what are the problems of human dignity and bioethics caused by human
At the
cloning.
beginning of our presentation, we identified the blurred line between what is real and what is fake as one of the prevalent themes in technotopias. The topic I will focus on, deepfakes, a technology allowing advanced image manipulation, is directly related to this issue. Firstly, however, it will be useful to look at how picture manipulation techniques developed. 200 years ago, Nicéphore Niepce, a French inventor, created the world's first photograph using heliography, a bitumen-based photographic process. Shortly after, the first techniques of manual photo manipulation were invented, among them retouching with ink or paint and airbrushing. The 20th century brought digitalization, which allowed for much more advanced image manipulation with the use of software such as Paintbox, Photoshop, or GIMP. And finally, in 2017, the term deepfake was coined to describe a newly developed process of generating and altering images using deep learning technology. In short, artificial intelligence can be programmed to move specific points of an image, like facial features, to imitate natural movement. So here are some examples of those technologies. Firstly, we have the oldest surviving photograph, a reproduction of a 17th century painting created by Niepce in 1825. On the right, a photomontage by Elsie Handy from 1902, seemingly depicting Ulysses Grant on a horse. In fact, the head of the general, his body on the horse, and the background come from 3 different photos. And next we see a little over-the-top picture with Lady Liberty, mountain ranges, and medieval castles all in one place, composed of 16 different images using Adobe Photoshop. And finally, on the right, there is a showcase of fully fledged deepfake technology. The GIF comes from a 2022 music video, The Hard Part 5, by American rapper Kendrick Lamar, created with the help of Dave Free, a visual artist. In the video, faces of O.J. Simpson, as in the GIF, Kanye West, Jussie Smollett, Will Smith, Kobe Bryant, and Nipsey Hussle are superimposed on Lamar's. So now that we have seen what image manipulation looks like, let's turn to the concerns surrounding it. It is no surprise that image-altering technologies have proved a powerful propaganda tool. This was already appreciated by Joseph Stalin, who often had his former co-workers erased from official photos after they fell out of favor. The most famous example is the removal of Nikolai Yezhov, former head of the NKVD, after he was executed in 1940. However, the trick had been used even earlier in the case of Averly Nikudze, former secretary of the All-Russian Central Executive Committee, who was executed in 1937, and ironically by Yezhov's firing squad. As we can see, image altering allowed totalitarian regimes to literally vaporize enemies, in Orwellian terms. Of course, image manipulation has also found its way into modern-day propaganda. Some of these attempts are less sophisticated. For example, the audio in this 2019 video of Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, was pitched and slowed down to make her appear drunk, a rather crude attempt, which some argue should only be called a shallow fake. A much more advanced deepfake, however, was recently released by Russian propagandists, seemingly depicting the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urging his soldiers to lay down arms. As a matter of course, deepfakes are not merely a tool of propaganda. They can also be employed for positive or neutral purposes, such as art, for instance, allowing to bring deceased actors back to life on screen, like in the case of Peter Cushing, who made a deepfake cameo in the film Rogue One, 22 years after his death. Deepfakes are also widespread on social media, as memes or even deepfake-based platforms such as Chinese Zao, which allows users to swap their faces with those of film characters. However, the technology is also used for malicious purposes, such as blackmail, pornography, and in particular so-called revenge porn, and creating sock puppets, AI-generated fictional accounts used to influence trends on social media. Although the dangers of deepfakes are evident, the legal response has been rather slow. There is no legislation in force anywhere in the world dealing with deepfakes explicitly. US Congress has introduced 2 acts on the matter, but neither of them has come into force yet. Chinese Cyberspace Administration warns that failure to label deepfakes may be a crime, but there is no statutory provision to support it. In the UK, producers of deepfakes can be prosecuted merely for harassment, and in India for breach of privacy. The European Union seems to be the closest to codifying an explicit law on deepfakes. When its Digital Services Act comes into force, its code of practice will oblige tech companies to tackle deepfakes under the risk of fines. So we have seen how deepfakes can blur the line between the real and the fake, and their effect is only amplified by the addictive nature of technology, discussed earlier by Anna, and the specific dangers of social media, which Sophie will elaborate upon. Therefore, the key questions that must be answered if we are to prevent a dystopian future where the truth can be easily distorted by the constantly perfected deepfake technologies are: is it the responsibility of states or companies, or maybe both, to counter deepfakes? How to educate people to help them debunk deepfakes? How to tackle the phenomenon without suppressing freedom of speech and artistic expression? And finally, whether the technology should even be further developed, given its many dangers, but also unquestionable boons.
Okay, so I'll now be talking about the film The Social Dilemma. And even though this film is primarily documentary, there are elements of dramatization that emphasize the somber dystopian nature of the film. So it mainly discusses the dangers associated with social media and artificial intelligence, which is an issue we've all been familiar with for some time. But what's different about this film is that it presents the more nuanced and sinister issues that we may not be aware of necessarily. And many people see social media as a tool, but what the film is trying to say is exactly the opposite. They argue how a tool is anything that sits calmly waiting to be used, much like a wrench or a hammer. And they describe how it doesn't demand to be used or pry for our attention, much like social media does. And as you see throughout the film, this has devastating consequences. So, first, they explain that when you think of a world where AI takes over, many of us think of robots overtaking humanity, much like we see in popular dystopian movies. But obviously, in our current world, this isn't the case. What's happening instead is that we're all getting trapped in this addictive cycle where our phones essentially control us, which connects to one of the overall themes of techno dystopia that we discussed. And to elaborate, they explain how every time we use social media, our data is being sold to big companies so that they can manufacture algorithms extremely specific to our interests to ensure that we're compelled to interact with these platforms. One data scientist describes this process as much like a Vegas slot machine. So, to elaborate, every time we check our phones, we never really know what we're going to get, which adds to the excitement. If we do get any notification of mild interest, the dopamine levels in our brain increase, only making us want to check our phones more and more to get that fix. And this is how companies make billions of dollars, as we're the product they're selling to advertisers. And companies make the most money through unregulated communications that reach everyone at the best price. In a way, these algorithms know us better than we know ourselves, resulting in the human brain being no match against such a powerful computer. They also mention how the people who make the platforms don't want to necessarily learn about you, but they want to change you. So, in other words, their goal is to change small behaviors in order to ultimately make you more addicted to these platforms. Social media was designed to be addictive, and they stress how technological developments are only making this worse. And a major consequence of this is that people who frequent a social networking site are 3 times more likely to experience feelings of alienation and social isolation. On top of this, there are higher rates of suicide and depression. And more specifically, the rate has increased more than 100% over the years, with the average age dropping to as low as 12 to 13 years old. Second, these forms of technology, specifically AI, are also responsible for misinformation and fake news. This can be parallel to the theme of the blurring between what is reality and what is fake. To illustrate, depending on your opinions, Google will show you different results. This benefits the big corporations as they take advantage of a for-profit misinformation business model. And the result of this is the extreme polarization we see in our society today, which can be expanded to the danger of far right and far left that we explored last week. And these tools of mass public manipulation pose a threat to our democracy as well.
And throughout the film, there are multiple connections between the early stages of social media, which can be compared to utopian ideas, and the state of our current relationship to social media, which can be compared to these same utopic ideas turning dystopic. For example, the inventor of the like button, Justin Rosenstein, created this feature to promote positivity and happiness. But he never thought that it would turn into something that people would obsess over to the point where it would have a serious detriment on people's mental health. In addition, the very people who have created these platforms, such as former CEOs of Pinterest and software engineers at Google, have actually left their jobs because they're so afraid of what they've created. And these examples allude to how close to a dystopia we are, and some would even argue that we're already in one.
Hi guys, it's Claire again. I'm back for a brief conclusion. So throughout our presentation, you have seen how different forms of media criticize the rising prevalence of technology and how we may already be living in a dystopia of sorts, particularly in regards to social media, which is becoming extremely present in our society today. And this isn't to dismiss the fact that, of course, technology has many benefits, but when it's as omnipresent as it is today, it's in danger of becoming a threat, as like some of these dystopias that we've looked at throughout our presentation may actually have some warning behind them that we should take with a grain of salt. And then of course the dangers that we're worried about with technology today are primarily addiction and the blurring of reality, which you've seen throughout our presentation. So thank you for listening today. Goodbye.